Are we live? I see my thumbs up. All right. Hello. Welcome back. I'm Vashi Nedomansky, feature film editor based in Los Angeles. And welcome back to our second Q&A, where you get to ask anything you want about film editing, filmmaking, whatever comes to mind with the process. So thanks for joining me again. Welcome back to my cave where I work out of, where I've cut almost all of my 11 feature films to date. And so let's start with the first question so we don't waste anyone's time. What do we got?
Let's see here. We've got Tobias Wilhelmer on Instagram asks, Vashi, how did you get your first feature film in LA, and have you worked as an assistant editor before? Greetings.
Good questions. Very nice. Thank you for asking. Tobias, awesome. The first editing job on a feature film, like my first break, was for David Zucker, who directed Airplane and Naked Gun and Scary Movie. I had cut some commercials for him separately, and some 30-second spots in LA. He was a friend of a friend, and my friend recommended me. He said, Vashi, you should come and edit these commercials for you. So I did that for David, did about 4 or 5 commercials, and then he said, next feature film I get, you're gonna edit it. And as an editor in Hollywood, you hear that a lot. You hear, oh, you're gonna do my next film. But he was absolutely true to his word. I cut his last feature film, which was called An American Carol. And that was the break. I had to prove myself on a smaller scale by doing commercials for him. And then he was willing to take a chance on me. And I performed. We did really well. And we're going to be doing 2 more films coming up, his next 2 films. As an assistant, I've never worked as an assistant for someone else on a feature film, only because back in the early 2000s, like, you had to know how to do everything. We got Final Cut 7 out of the gate. So I had to learn all the little intricacies of how to sync, how to organize a project, how to set everything up. So I learned it for myself and did it for myself. I was basically my own assistant. But I haven't assisted anyone else yet. But it is changing now, where you have so much to do. You have to set up projects. But if you're organized well, the ultimate goal of an assistant is to become an editor usually, or to be able to cut scenes. So you have to know all the little parts of the filmmaking process, how to set up a project like we were talking about, how to organize it, how to sync footage, how to make your editor be able to tell the story. So I haven't done that, but I've done it. So hopefully that's a good enough answer. Next.
All right, we've got a couple questions coming in on the live here. Digital Marionette asks, what tips on conforming weird anamorphic footage, projector lenses, DIY stuff do you have?
Conforming them?
Yeah. As
in trying to make them, I assume it's like using super wide footage in your regular edit. In Premiere Pro, I know they have lens undistort options, where if you tell it, I'm shooting with an anamorphic, it'll turn it into the proper frame size for a 16:9 project. Usually with anamorphic, if you're mixing it in, you have to have a wider aspect ratio because you'll have the bars up and down. But there's no specific tricks. Sometimes we had to do it manually. You would have your points on your actual footage, and you'd have to shrink it so it fit or looked good. Now there's usually presets or plugins or other options to fix it for you. And in Premiere Pro, which is the one I use, it will, if you drop in footage, it'll automatically resize it for whatever your sequence setting is. So start from the basics that way, and then if you want to, look under the lens correction presets that come inside there. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, and then hopefully I'm not botching this name, but we have a question from Sanjay Sathyan. Okay,
Sanjay.
Sanjay.
Yep.
Which color space do you use for color grading? I don't know how to pronounce this. Something or DaVinci Color Managed?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I've color graded like 9 feature films and a whole bunch of commercials and whatnot. That's always like a different muscle skill set and good eyes. I think the most important thing is to have a proper reference monitor. Usually we see stuff in regular color space, but there's so many things out there with P3, with ACEs, with everything else. There's lots of different standards. So the most important thing is that the end viewer, your client or the producer or the show, as long as you could see it in the same finable deliverable state, because you could color grade accordingly, but if they have unbalanced monitor on their end, it's going to look horrible. So that won't be your fault. So it's more important to have a proper reference monitor and then not worry about the color space per se, as long as it matches what the final deliverable is, as if it's a TV or an iPad or an iPhone or whatever you want. So there's many ways to skin that cat. Not that we're skinning cats. You don't want to skin cats. That's not what we're doing here. But yeah, usually talk to the people that what your deliverable is, and then use that color space, because there will be specific requirements for everything. At Netflix, they have like a 40-page deliverable guide that says everything that you need to do and how to do it. And actually, I'll be able to post that on my Twitter and my Facebook so you guys can see it. It's a really important document that shows you what to expect at the highest level to deliver a product, and it covers color space and everything else. So I'll post that for everyone soon.
Awesome. And by the way, I just saw Tobias joined. We answered your amazing question first, so we'll be...
Be on time, Tobias. Be on time. 12 o'clock means 12.
But we will be posting the replay of this as soon as it's done. So be sure to check it out.
Yeah, the replay will be up on Instagram, and then I'll also put it on YouTube the next day.
Awesome. Yeah.
What's next?
Great question. We have a couple other questions here. Let me scroll up just a second. We had a question from Instagram about, from Bad Raven Films. What is your preferred workflow for organizing film structure for feature films?
Really good question. I think the most important thing, this goes for short films, feature films, everything, is being organized up front. The time you spend setting up your project, setting up your bins, setting up your sequences, and everything will ripple downstream. And it will also, if you don't do it properly, it doesn't only hurt you, but it hurts your sound team or your VFX team downstream if you have to hand over a project that's just a mess. And we've all seen projects where there's just assets floating in your main bin, like just a junk pile, right? So that's the worst. And if you have to show a producer or director and you can't find something, that's criminal. As a professional editor, I have to be able to find any asset, any shot as fast as humanly possible to stay in the flow. So I would start with a really good folders setup, and I have on my website, I have my personal like default Premiere Pro project that already has the bins, already has everything broken out. It already has the pancake timeline on it. I'm sure we can link to it, but if you go to vashivisuals.com, you'll see pancake timeline, or even I have like 3 or 4 different presets that are projects that you can open, and they're pre-built. They have the bins in there. They're already named. They're already colored. So you literally can just drop your footage in the right appropriate folder.
And we can post a link to that on your bio after this.
Yeah. So that's how I approach it, by organizing my assets so they're easily found, easily navigated, easily broken into. And also, if I have to hand my project over to someone else, they can open it. It's just very simply, clearly stated like where everything is. So it helps everyone downstream. So being organized is the most critical thing before you start the creative process, before you start the editorial process. Be organized. That's hypercritical.
And we had another great question on the live here from This Is Sam 5. How to learn filmmaking alone and on the cheap with the end goal of making your own feature film.
I think the easiest way is to start small. The actual process of editing is the same. So pick a 30-second story that you want to tell. You can shoot with your iPhone, you can shoot with whatever you want. Be able to get your shots, have a shot list. So start with a 30-second spot or a 1-minute short film. Whatever it is, the process doesn't change. You have to organize your footage. You have to tell it in the proper way. You have to massage the edits. You have to make the sound really good. You have to make the color grade look nice. So if you can do it on a 1-minute scale, then you can do it for a 5-minute short, then you can do a 20-minute short, do a 40-minute documentary, then work up to a feature film. You don't want to tackle a feature film right out of the gate unless you have wild abandon and are gonna expect miracles. It usually doesn't happen if you start. But if you can do it on a small scale, then expand and scale up, then you can do it on a feature length. That's how I did it. I started with short films that I wrote and shot, and 2 minutes long, and they were very challenging because I'm making mistakes. But you want to make the mistakes on the smallest scale possible, and so they're hopefully gone when you tackle a 2-hour film. And the other thing is, with a 2-hour film, on an average day, I'll probably end up with about 3 or 4 minutes of footage that's been cut properly, that has music underneath it, that the dialogue has been properly addressed and smoothed out, and the scene plays by itself. So I'm looking at 3 minutes a day, max. Something that I'm proud to show the director or producer, not just like shots put together with no audio. A really polished 3 minutes is what I expect to get every day when I'm working on a feature film. So you can extrapolate that for over how long it takes to make a feature film. But it's like writers. You want to write, they say, try and write 5 pages a day, or try and write 10 pages a day. It's just a number. Some days you'll do less, some days you'll do more. But I usually, on a professional feature film, I'm usually 3 or 4 minutes max for a day.
Awesome. And then just a side note, we had a quick question from I am Akash Moran on Instagram about Avid Media Composer or Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
We actually answered that on our last live, and it's now on our YouTube. So if you want to check out Vashi Nedomansky on YouTube, the latest video, we answered that as the last question.
And the long and short of it is, I've cut feature films on Avid Media Composer, Final Cut 7, and Premiere Pro. So I've used all 3 platforms on a professional level. The last 5 feature films I've cut with Premiere Pro, but that's just by choice. That's because I prefer it. But as an editor, I have to know all the platforms. I'm also editing with DaVinci Resolve now just to see how it works because it's all in one central hub. But you should know all the platforms because if you're known as just an avid editor, you're going to lose jobs. If someone's like, I need an editor, and yours thinks as avid editor, then they're like, well, we're using Premiere Pro, so I'm not even going to reach out to this person. So if you're an editor, be an editor and learn all the tools you can.
And then we had another great question from Sanjay. Do you transfer...
The same Sanjay?
Sanjay Sathayan, yeah.
Okay, cool.
He's got great questions.
All right, well, fire them in if everyone will appreciate them.
Do you transcode Cinema DNG RAW format files to work on Premiere Pro, or do you work on RAW format as is? As it is.
For the last 3 or 4 years, I have used only the RAW camera negatives, no matter what it is. My last feature film was 6 Below. I had 100 hours of 6K red files, and I edited the RAW files the whole time. I never transcoded. I never went through proxies. The one caveat with that is I had a really, really souped up Dell PC that had like 160 gigabytes of RAM. It had 20 cores. So it was really, really souped up, and it needed to be able to handle that. That's my preferred method of editing. I haven't done proxies or transcodes in like 4 years. So if you can invest in a system, then you're really cutting a lot of time because I can start cutting right away. And at the end, I don't have to online. I don't have to conform because I'm onlining the whole time. I'm literally using the best footage possible and editing it and then being able to export from that, be it the DCP, the Blu-ray, the video files for online, but it's all based on that core stuff. So I don't transcode, but that's, if you don't have enough strong enough system and powerful RAID, then it's going to be really hard to do. Otherwise, yes, I would just use proxies. If you're dealing with Cinema DNG files, they're really thick and a robust format and codec. So I would, yeah, if you're forced to, you have to do proxies, sure.
We had a fashion question as well from Digital Marionette. What sweatband do you wear? Does it help during your stressful edits?
Yes, well, the reason I use a wristband, I always have wristbands on, is because when I have the mouse on the table, I don't like my wrist like rubbing on the table because I am like mousing all day. So I always wear wristbands so my wrist doesn't get screwed up on the table. Mouse. But I also have every color known to man, and I just get them on Amazon. They're like $12 for like 10 of them, and I never know what color until I get them.
If you need to play a quick tennis game in between edits.
Oh yeah, no, if I have to. And sometimes it does, oh God, oh, it's getting hot in here. Yeah, and it does get sometimes sweaty in the edit bay. The last film I did, they turned off the air conditioning in the building at 3 in the afternoon, and I would sometimes go until 9 or 10 at night, and it was 100 degrees outside. And I was in the like attic of this edit facility with no air conditioning, and I literally had like a Speedo on, and that was it. And my director would come up and he'd be like, really? You're just sitting, sweating in a Speedo. I'm like, dude, it's hot. Turn the AC on. What do you want from me? So that's another fashion tip. Speedos and wristbands are the way to go for a professional editor.
We had a couple other questions here.
Sure. Yeah, a couple more. What are we, like 15 minutes? Yeah, I got another like 5 minutes, and then I got to get back at it. But what do we got? Give me a good one.
We had a great question from Mike Pelosi.
Okay.
Any suggestions on how to make interior and or exterior day for night shots in Premiere? Having some difficulty not making things look just blue.
Yeah. A lot of it is like either desaturating it or adding the blue. There is a plugin or a preset inside Lumetri Color in Premiere Pro. What I like to use is Yarly's presets. Yarly is at, I believe, premierepro.net, and he has something called Yarly's presets. I think it's up to like version 4. There's about 100 free plugins that you can import into Premiere Pro. One of them is a day for night plugin, which I find really, really good, better than the one that comes with Premiere Pro. So track down Yarly's, Jarles, Yarly's plugins or presets, and look for the day for night filter that comes in that. It's also made from just curves and stuff, so there's no render hit. You can play it in real time. It's not gonna mess anything up, and it won't mess up your playback. So grab those. I use those all the time.
He says, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, hell yeah.
We had a couple other Instagram questions here.
Yes.
I might be butchering this name. Ahmez says, is starting off as a post runner the route you would recommend to get into the industry?
It depends what you want to do. If you're trying to get into filmmaking or editing or whatever, then any job where you get to see and shadow people, see what they're doing, how they're doing it, how they interact, how other people work with them, getting in at any level to get it into a facility would be your first step. If that's as a runner, then grab it. You can always edit at home, you can always work on your craft, but it's more important to try and meet people, be inside the buildings and the facilities where the work that you want to be doing already is happening, and you can watch. You can learn so much from watching other people and shadowing them and just being around them and just seeing that, because yes, some of it's technical, but a lot of it is the people skills and understanding there's certain terminology that you would only see in the edit bay or at a post-production facility. Those are terms you need to learn. You can see them in real time happening, and so that's super critical. So anything you can do to get into a facility, post-production facility, a filmmaking studio or whatever, like, yeah, absolutely. Don't think less of it because you're a runner or whatever. Like you're ahead of like 99% of the people that want to be doing that if you show up and you're actively there, on the job. So take it, absolutely.
We had a question from Covert Film.
Yep.
On a super complex scene, how do you typically decide where to start?
A similar question last week, but what I like to do is if there's a super complicated scene, I will find a keystone, something that I know I can work with. If it's a long chase sequence or something, like find some shots that you're really familiar with, that you already know in your head how you want to make it work, so you have that starting point. If you just start, you should never just start at the beginning of the scene just because you're supposed to. Start somewhere where you're comfortable, where you have a really solid idea for how it should build, and then you can build forward and backwards from there. Usually even in a dialogue scene, if there's a moment that has to be really strong and central to the scene, edit that moment first. It could just be a glance. It could be one line of dialogue to another. But once you have the core of that scene playing and working, then you can flesh it out and go either way until you have a full sequence. For me, it's different every time, but I'll just gravitate towards a part of it that I know I can tackle, or I know I want to tackle because I have the end goal of how it should be already played out. So that's my approach for where to start on a scene.
Awesome. We had a question from Gorov. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. How do you edit a flashback sequence and fit that into the narrative?
Put a black and white filter, make wavy lines, and then just drop it in. No, a flashback should, first of all, it's written in the script. Obviously it's written, I'm not just making it up. So I got to see where it falls in the script and how it plays. If I edit it, usually the rule is, not the rule, but usually you want to have a slightly different visual look. It could be a different color palette. Again, it could be desaturated. It could be black and white. Something that makes it clear that it's a flashback. This is critical. And what has happened on every movie that I've worked with that have flashbacks on them, where they're written and where they end up at the final end of the film are two completely different spots. You'll write it, you'll shoot it, and you'll say, here the flashback should go in between these two regular scenes. More often than not, it doesn't work for whatever reason, and you have to find a home for these flashback sequences, especially if they're telling a story that has to be resolved at the end. So step one would be visually make them a little different than the regular rest of the film. And second, be flexible to where you're actually putting them in. You're not locked in as an editor. You, as an editor, decide how it's told and if it's working. If you just put it in where it is on the script, and just say, here you go, to the director or the producer, and it's not working, they're like, the edit's not working.
If it feels wrong.
If it feels wrong, it is wrong. If it feels right, it is right. The movie will tell you where these flashbacks need to live and where they need to be for it to work. And once it clicks, you'll step back and be like, wow, look, it's just magic. So experiment where you should put them, and I'm telling you, you'll have some really pleasant surprises if you play with it a bit. That's your job.
Right.
You have to edit it. Last question.
We've got quite a few questions. Can we do another 4 minutes? Are you good?
Okay, yes.
4 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have, let's see here. Kelly Creatives says, what's your favorite film from an editor standpoint?
Usually as an editor, you're not trying to see the film for a process of shots and the whole evolution of everything. You want to be emotionally invested. But one of my favorite films as an editor and as a filmmaker, I would say, is JFK. Oliver Stone's JFK, I think it was 1992. They had like 3 editors working on it. They mixed like every format of film and photography and like Super 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, VHS. Everything was mixed in this film, but it's still coherent. It's telling the story. But I just think the editing is stunning because they're changing time periods. They're changing into flashbacks like we were just talking about. They're changing formats. And as a whole, when you watch it at the end, it's an overwhelmingly like draining experience. And I literally, like as an editor, I'm like, wow, that's just so impressive. So I would say JFK as an accomplishment in editing will be my favorite.
All right, 2 more questions.
Okay.
We have Thora asks, how do you process post sound? Is it after picture lock or before?
As an editor, I try and make the dialogue obviously clean as possible, choose nice takes, and then fill in the bottom with ambience and music as needed, just so when I show the director, the producer, they have a good approximation of what the final output will be. A lot of times the directors and producers cannot fill in the blanks like an editor would. I can watch something and cut something without the music and know how it'll sound with the music. So I try and flesh it out. But no matter what, once picture is locked, they'll take all my audio, and sometimes I'll have up to 30 layers, 30 track layers. I'll have dialogue, music, sound effects, ambiance, Foley, everything. And I'll take that, I'll export it as an OMF or AAF, and we'll send it over to whoever's doing the sound. And they usually open it on a Pro Tools system. And then all my layers are there. And what the sound mixer and sound editor will do is smooth everything out, clean up the dialogue, remove the noise, make everything blend, put it in a 5.1 stereo surround system, like audio world space. So I have to lock it and then hand it over, but it's once picture locked. So the biggest problem you get is that someone wants to change something. Well, you have to then export a whole nother AAF, even if you just moved one little audio thing, if you want to change it on my end. So I want to get it as close as possible, and then the director or producer will go sit with the sound team and then do another sonic edit on that at that point. So I got to lock it off at some point and then hand it off.
Awesome. And then we'll end on a deep one here. We have GR.
Oh boy.
GR.
How deep is it? It's too, I'm so sleepy. No deepy. What do you got?
We've got GR Videographer asks, how do you maintain your creativity?
By getting out of the edit bay, by going outside, going to play tennis, going to play hockey, reading a book, painting something, anything that's not in here, because I'm always thinking, even when I'm outside the edit bay, my best ideas come when I'm outside the edit bay, and even when it's about something that I'm editing. If I'm working on something and I can't crack it, I'll go for a walk, I'll go see a movie, I'll go, do something else. And your brain's always working in the background. It's always analyzing what you've already worked on, it's analyzing what's coming up, and it'll pop up with an answer if you just give it time and you shake up your environment. So for me to be creative, I have to get out of my edit bay, go outside, get the sun on your face, do something, go for a run, go for a drive, get out of the edit bay, and have some hobbies. Don't just be an editor sitting there crushing yourself. Like, have hobbies that you can step away to and then enjoy life, That work-life balance is very, very, very hard. And I have trouble with it as well. But yeah, shake it up.
We have 1 minute, and we have a question from Melissa Coulier.
Okay.
We have, how do you use color grade to create emotion in a film?
Colors are very powerful. They're very fluid in terms of you can make anything look like something else or feel like something else. And we're triggered. Usually if you think about, if you make an entire image kind of look yellow or old, it's nostalgic, it feels like it's a nostalgic past time, it looks like sepia, it looks like an old film from the 70s. Currently there's a lot of films that use like a lot of neon and a lot of bright colors, and like half of someone's face is red, the other half is green, and it's really striking. So with colors, it's another storytelling tool that you should use to help tell the story the right way. Don't make loud, garish colors just because you can. That doesn't do anything. If I see a short film and it's just super color graded and to the end of its life, I'm like, that doesn't impress me. The story has to work first. The color that you choose, no matter what it is, no matter what LUT you use, what film emulation, whatever it is, it has to be helping to tell the story. And that's why working with a good colorist will give you a better result. And it also, with a nice color grade, because we're always shooting at different times, different places, a nice color grade will smooth out the whole film so it feels like it's living in the same world, which is essential. You don't want to take anyone out of the story by having one shot that is not color graded or color graded too much. It should flow and should be one beautiful thing at all times. And that's part of it. It should be invisible, but you could feel it. You should feel it. Thank you, Melissa.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We got to a lot of questions. Any that we didn't get to, we're going to try to get to next week. So
we're doing this next week? All right, fine.
We've got a lot more questions for you.
Okay, we'll do this again next week.
So
next Wednesday at noon.
We'll let you guys know when we're going live. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your very kind questions, and I'll try and get to all of them soon, or next week. All right, bye. Go have fun.